Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy. Do you want to reduce road noise and improve the sound of your subs in your BMW? I'll show you how. All right, y'all, so let's talk about this project before we do it and the reasons why you're going to want to do the same thing. Now, this is my stage 3 video, my final ultimate video on how to soundproof your car, reduce road noise, and also improve the overall sound floor of your stereo system, whether it's upgraded or your OEM. Now, hopefully you've checked out my stage 1 and 2 videos as well, and I really kind of laid them out with the different products and kind of level of effort. Stage 1 being the easiest, stage 2 being a little bit more complicated, and stage 3 being a little bit more effort. Now, if you've seen my stage 1 and stage 2, we've dealt with insulating your door spaces where you get a lot of road noise, passing cars and lights through your door spaces. Now, the one big thing that remains is the entire cabin bowl. All of your floor space, that's your footwells underneath your seats, back through the back seat, and even in your trunk space area. Now, we're going to be using this X1 today as a great example of what to do, and we're going to be using Soundskins Pro throughout the entire process. Now, this isn't all that hard to do. It just takes patience and time and a few simple tools, and I'll lay the work out for you. Now, one of the things I want to highlight right from the get-go, and I'm going to talk more of it as I show you, but we're going to be removing the driver's seat and passenger seat today. Do not unplug your seats without pulling the ground post off your battery. Okay, I'm going to show that, I'm going to say it, I'm going to say it again, all right? Because what we don't want to do is, through the arc of this work, we don't want to introduce any problems. So if you undo your wiring harness to your seats while it's plugged in or while the battery is connected, there's a really good chance you're going to get an airbag warning that only the dealership can clear. That's a pain. We don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that, okay? So, as we go through this, we actually want to have your battery connected in the very beginning because we're going to be running the seats forward and back to be able to get to the posts to get those bolts out. So let's go ahead and start there. Let's jump into the car. I'm going to show you how to remove one seat, but both seats are going to be the same. And then I'm going to walk you through the entire process where we're going to be adding Soundskins Pro underneath all of the carpets throughout the entire cabin bowl. All right, let's get started. All right, so starting here on the passenger side, and this is why you want to do this initially with power. So you can move your seats back and forward. I usually will straighten the seat back quite a bit to get at as small of a profile as possible because we're going to be pulling the seat out through the door. But what you want to do is go ahead and pull the bolts first. So these are a T45 Torx bolt. So just use a wrench, remove both front bolts, run the seat forward to get to the back bolts. Then at that point, the seat is loose. Do not unplug it, right? You're going to want to do the same to the other seat on the other side, so the driver's seat. And then at that point, you can unhook your battery, pull the negative post off your battery. I'll show you that really quickly. And while these instructions are, BMW X1 specific, there's no reason why you couldn't use these because the process is going to be exactly the same on really any model of car. It's just a matter of how it all comes apart, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all 4 bolts on both front seats and then return the seat into about a neutral position on the rails. And then I will show you pulling the battery, and then we're going to physically take out both of the seats. So once you have the bolts out of your seat and you adjust the seats back into that kind of middle position, and you don't need power in the car anymore. So your tailgate is open, your doors are open, and all the rest. We can unhook the battery. So now in this X1, we've got this plastic tray up here in the front. There are 2 little plastic rivets on each corner. When you pull those plastic rivets, this entire tray will come up and out, and you can see your battery. It's a big shadow. But you can see the negative post right there. So you're going to want to go ahead and take a 10 millimeter, loosen that nut on the post, and go ahead and pull the post up and off. At that point, we're going to be taking the seats out, and I'm going to show you how to get the back seat out, the front seats as well. But I'll touch on that in just a second. So but go ahead and unhook your battery, and then let's look at the seats in the back seat. All right, so starting here at the back, let's talk about what it's going to take to get down to bare metal. Now here in the back is easiest enough. I take that back board out. I've taken the back shelf out as well to give me all of this space. Now this carpet bowl that sits right here, there's 2 plastic screws that go in on either side. They're T20s. And then you have the plastic rivets here in the back that you lift. You have the toolkit, which is what that strap was holding in. The toolkit, that strap comes through the carpet bowl, so you have to pull the toolkit out. And then this entire carpet will pull out, and you can see the bare metal. Now, the back seat in this X1 is a little bit different than just about every BMW ever, because most of the time the bottom seat base will come out. But if you look right here, and I've pulled the plastic cover off, there's a T55 bolt. So basically this back seat is bolted down into place. Now hopefully you'll be able to see it okay, but right here, and right here, and right here, and right over there are big metal plates that come down with additional T55s. Because the back carpet bowl right here is all one piece. It comes underneath the seats and comes up over the shelf and under the back seat, unlike most other BMW models. So if you want to get basically the back third of the car, you're gonna have to pull the seat. It's gonna be 1, 2 big bolts in front, the 4 big bolts across the back, they're T55s. You pull all those and then very carefully stand this up and lift it out. You're probably going to want to get an extra set of hands to do so, to be able to get down to the carpet. Okay? And then lastly, the front seat. I've set the front seats in the middle position. They are loose now and can come out. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is they're still attached to the seat belt. Now, you can potentially pull the cover off and pull the bolt and release the seat belt. I find it's not worth the hassle most of the time, and I will just get the seat out through the door and we'll set the seat out over here with the seatbelt still attached. There's enough room that I can do all my work and not worry about detaching the seatbelt. If you want to, you can. You have to pull this cover off, as you can see, and there is a bolt right here for the seatbelt. Like I said, I find it's not worth the hassle, so I generally don't. Lastly, and very importantly, your battery is disconnected. Do not do this step if you haven't, because there's an airbag here. Your battery's disconnected, which I showed you a second ago, so go ahead and tip the seat back and actually get to the cable underneath. Now, it's a little dark right now, I don't have my light on me, but it's your typical wide BMW plug with that horseshoe style collar across the top that you depress the little tab, rock the collar back and pull the plug out. Okay, do not unplug your seats until your battery is done. If that's done, go ahead and unplug your seats, pull the back seats, pull all those T55 bolts, and then I'll show you how to get the carpet up. So you can see the seats are out. You know, it's funny, I don't like taking my seats out, but when I do, I love being able to vacuum underneath them, right? There's all those places you can never reach with the seats in place. And you never know what you're gonna find. You might find some money, an old French fry, or you know, that receipt you looked for 6 months ago. So when the back seat comes out, you take those bolts out, you just tip it forward up onto its nose, and then you can walk it out the back door. It is very heavy for its size. You might want to have an extra set of hands to get it out. And then what we're going to do from here is basically we just need to get to a place where we can peel the carpet up. Now, here's the one thing that we're not going to do. I am not going to take the center console out. That is way too much trouble, and for the relative benefit. So we're going to be able to work Soundskins Pro kind of up the transmission column right here. So we basically go for probably 5 hours of labor to get the center console out, just to get a strip over just that middle center. That does not make sense to me in any way, shape, or form, so I don't do it. So what I will do is I'm going to pull the door seal. So go ahead and pull this bottom one, or this initial one. You just pull it up and pull it away from the posts. The subwoofer underneath your seats right here, you're going to want to pull the covers. Those are T20s to get the cover off, because the entire subwoofer box is going to come out, but this holds the carpet down. And you can see the splits in the carpet. So basically what we're going to do is tip the carpet up as far as we can. And I'll show you what that looks like, but we're going to tip the carpet up and then lay the Soundskins down through as much of the exposed metal as we can. And so I try to walk the combination of taking off what parts we need to get off to get the work done, but taking as few off as possible to get the work done. Like I said, there's no, for example, like the center console, I don't see any reason to take that out. Okay, so I'm going to take my T20, I'm going to take the covers off, I'm going to take the door sills off, I'm just going to take both hands to pull this and pop it up, so to expose the carpet edge, and then we're going to start to peel the carpet up so we can get underneath it. All right, so I've got the carpet partially peeled up, as you can tell. Now, the driver's side tends to have the stiffest carpet here in the front footwell, plus this plastic piece is difficult to remove because of the hood release, so I usually don't. You also have your pedals in the way. So in this case, it's a matter of kind of tipping it up to get underneath it. Now, most models, including this one, have this foam block underneath that I'll address here in just a second. You can also see the sub box and we're going to want to get underneath that, and that to make your subs even more responsive. You really want to get Soundskins under the sub box. So there's two 10 millimeter nuts right here and here. Obviously, I've taken the door sill off. If you have any posts left behind, like I do, you just want to use a pair of pliers to pull those posts out and put them back on the plastic trim. Same thing goes for the B pillar right here. There's that big kind of Y-shaped plastic that comes down that holds the carpet down right here. You can just pop it off from the bottom, and it's got plastic rivets, and it comes all the way up here to the top. And I will usually leave this top section on just because, again, I'm only going to take off everything I need to take off. Now, let's take a look at the back here really quick. You can see this peels up very, very nicely, and I've just used some bungee cords to help hold the carpet up and out of the way. And any of these flat metal surfaces and up curving into the transmission tunnel is where we're going to lay Soundskins. Here's underneath your back seat. Now this is one big, just square piece of carpet. So I don't have the other side kind of disassembled yet, but as you can tell, this whole piece will just come out, which is really nice. So you can either do it one side at a time or take the entire piece out. And then, of course, the trunk area. So it's any of these flat surfaces that we're going to be laying Soundskins down. And I try to lay down the biggest pieces I can, right? So I'll take a tape measure. I'll measure this relatively square. Obviously, there's these upper sections right here that I'll need to carve out. But this is going to be a relatively square piece. So I'll measure it absolutely, lay the piece into shape, take a pencil, draw lines, and cut out around the seat posts. Now, I do not come up these posts and cover where your seat bases go. I don't want anything on these top points because that could potentially interfere with your seat getting bolted back down securely, okay? Any of the flat surfaces and up the transmission tunnel for sure. So let me get some Soundskins Pro cut, and then I'll show you kind of laying in this section. I'm also obviously going to take my sub out, but now it's just a matter of just cut and piece as we go. So here's our first piece here. So what I did was I measured 16 inches by 24 inches, and that's up the transmission tunnel here just a little bit. As you can see on the edge right there, I've slid it up the tunnel. Now, just as a matter of course, there's this big wiring harness right here. I don't see any reason. I'm not going to pull that wiring harness, and it's only going to leave a gap of about this much. So I'm going to run right up against the wiring harness, but not try to move it or get underneath it. Now, same thing with these little islands here. You can tell I've just laid the mat down, and I'm just going to take a pencil and draw around the island just to cut that out. And I'm going to do that on both sides. You can see it's kind of crimped over in that corner, but I'm going to cut around the island on both sides. Then this will lay in nice and flat. Okay, so this is the goal through the rest of the car. Now, the other thing I do try to do is, you know, call me detail oriented, but I also try to lay in all of the Soundskins with the logos and everything in the same direction. No one will ever know but me, but you know, I can't help myself sometimes. So I'll peel the backing off this, I'll lay this piece in, I'll do the transmission tunnel first, and I'll lay this down, and then I'll use the roller and roll it out really, really well. I'll do the same thing in the next section, which is underneath, will go underneath the sub. You can see we've got the posts there that the sub go on, so I'll make a little cutout around those posts. But the same thing, it's roughly a rectangular shape, and I'll cut it to fit. We'll deal with the front up underneath the front footwell in a little bit. Those tend to be a little bit more complicated as we go, but it's not that much. This back section is going to be really easy, with the exception of that big cable bundle right there. This is going to be a big, huge piece, though we do have the fuel pump door, the access door over there, which I'll deal with that in just when we get to that side. I'll talk about that in just a minute. And then same thing, big square pieces all across the back. So this really isn't hard. It's just a matter of just getting the pieces out, you know, getting your seats out and getting the carpet up enough to be able to work with it, and then put it all back together. Now, the other thing that I do tend to do is I'll also tend to go down this wall here. I'll have vertical pieces that fit here, and the scrap that you make from cutting off the roll. So like I said, that's 16 by 24, so 16 by 24. So now I've got kind of some rectangular scrap. That works really well for layering scrap in. So always save your scrap pieces because you never know where they're going to layer in. Okay, so I'm going to do this section, the next section, and then it's going to be all pretty much the same. I'm not going to show you the whole car because that's going to take too much time, but I'll show you how to do different sections, and then we'll wrap up. All right, so let's catch up to where we are. Like I said, I was going to do this back box section, which I've done. I've done the section that goes underneath the subs right here. I cut out a little gap, so I laid the Soundskins in, then cut out a little gap for the posts and for this ridge that the sub box attaches to. I could have potentially just pressed the Soundskins material down past all of that, but I wanted to make sure it had enough clearance that the box goes back down just fine. Now, in previous vehicles and other builds, I was able to get underneath this section and line underneath. But in this case, in this X1, this foam piece that's right here, and you can see it moves a little bit, it runs all the way back up underneath the pedals, and there's really not an easy way to get it out. So valor is the better part of discretion, or discretion is the better part of valor. Whenever I do jobs like this, I want to do a thorough job, but I don't want to break things or you know, spend 5 hours to do something that really is not going to make that much of a difference. So in this case, I'm actually going to leave the driver's side footwell alone. In previous vehicles, in the X5, in the M2, and some of the other cars I've done, I was able to get underneath all of this. I'm not going to in this case. So just do whatever, you know, really fits best as you go through it. Now let's take a look at the back here really quick. And this really is just measure, cut, and stick. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is just kind of a lessons learned of doing this over time. Now, I could easily go over this cable box right here and this primary cable, and it would come up and over and lay over it just fine. But in this case, I think just to make sure that I don't impinge on this in any way, obviously I've cut this material short, and I'll put a matching piece over on the other side. I haven't stuck it down yet, so I just measure. I cut if I have to shape a little bit, so I cut this corner off so it fits in really nicely. Because again, this doesn't have to be 100% coverage to make a dramatic difference. I mean, we're going to be very high percentage coverage, and it's going to make a huge difference. And sometimes you can either, you know, create some problems, or you're going to spend a lot of time for very little benefit. Now, when we get over to the other side, which I have a piece of sound matting on top of right now, that's the access door for your low pressure fuel pump. So we're going to cover it, but we're going to make sure to cut out the material, and I'll show you what that looks like when we get there. Now, as you can see that piece sitting right there, the one thing you can do is keep in mind, these sides are going to be duplicated. This side is the same as the other side. This side is the same as the other side. Same thing on this wall piece right here. So as you measure these pieces out, cut it twice. Cut 2 of them. So you only have to measure once and cut twice. Or measure once and cut once. Something like that, right? Because I know I'm going to do an identical piece on the other side. So when I measured this, I cut one out, and I cut a second one out, which is what that piece is sitting over there. I've done the same thing for the footwell. I've done the same thing for the piece under the sub. I don't have any pre-cut for the passenger side footwell yet, because I'm going to see if I can get underneath it. But as you can see, this is how we're just going to march through this. And I'm not going to document every single little piece, but I wanted to show you the process along the way and share some advice as we go. So I'm going to finish this whole back seat section. I'm going to go back and do the trunk area, and then we're going to work our way up the other side of the car. All right, so let's get caught up on the walk around here in a little bit. And as I said, I would save the gas door for your low pressure fuel pump and the passenger side front to the last. Let me show you what it did. So here we are looking at the driver's side. Again, we've got underneath the subsection, underneath the back passenger footwell. The front footwell we're gonna leave alone. We've come across all this back shelf here, and like I said, I left the split down the middle to leave that module uncovered, which is just fine. I'll cover the low pressure door here in just a second. Come around the back. We've covered all of the flat surfaces here in the back very simply in one big piece, and also down the sidewalls a little bit, because that's bare metal with some holes through it, so you're gonna get vibration that would come through that, including across this cross beam right here with a little cutout for your toolkit right there. Now, whatever those sensors are, because they're plugged in, probably part of the suspension, probably. It was too much for the Soundskins to lay over the top, so I just made small cutouts for each. Should be fine. Same thing here. So we look here down the passenger side, all the way across the back bench, the back footwell, all the way back underneath the subs. Now, the passenger footwell, you have a choice, right? So you have this big foam piece that sits in, and obviously I've been able to take mine out. Now, this has, you know, some ridges on it. It has some clearance issues where it might be a little bit tight. On my M2, I went ahead and did both footwells because I was able to reach it and able to get that foam piece out. On the driver's side of this car, I don't see a reasonable way to get it out the way the carpet is pinned down so much more, but you have so much more space on this side that it's a lot easier to get to. So again, just take it out, and it's kind of an odd looking space. So you can just kind of take one big square piece. So I would measure like here to here and here to about here, and then just cut this scallop out for your air duct for the back seats. So you end up with this piece. So cut a square piece, measure it, cut that angle out, and then go ahead and lay it down. Now, with a lot of these pieces, you know, obviously you've got this kind of foam backing on the back of the carpets and all these things. You're closing all of those clearances a little bit. You know, you're adding the thickness of the Soundskins. So everything's going to fit a little bit tighter. So, which is why it's up to you if you want to get underneath this foam block. I would go ahead and do it anyway. The clearances should be fine on all the other cars that I did. It's just a little bit tighter. So go ahead and get this piece done, and then pretty much at that point, you're all done. Then it's going to be putting the car all back together, all the plastics back on, putting your seats back in. I'll walk you through that whole process just as a quick summary, because obviously if you've got it all out and you've gotten to this point, you've taken it all out. But slowly walk it all back in, right? Walk, you know, lay your carpets back down, you know, put your back seat back in. You can, don't forget your air ducts right here. There's those air ducts that go through the hole in the carpet right here, that go through the carpet for the back seat. So slide those air ducts in, all those different pieces. So I'll walk through those in summary, but it's just the reverse of taking everything back out. All right, y'all, so the car is mostly back together, so let's give a quick walkthrough and some tips and tricks as you go through this yourself. Now remember, especially if you took off the B-pillar plastic, this door sill should be on the outside of this top plastic piece and of the B-pillar plastic, right? Because if it's pinned back, it will stick down. So as you can see, it's pinned back there a little bit. So you can use your fingers to sit here and come underneath it and just peel it out to get it back out to where it should be, but that should be over the top. Unlike the door sill plastics, where the door sill plastics go over the top of that. Now remember, if you had those posts left behind, you pull the posts out, put them back into the trim, bang it back down into place. Now the seats are not secured down yet, and the battery's still unplugged, but I've plugged the seats back in, right? Because we're gonna need to move the seats forward and back to be able to get to the bolt locations to put the bolts in. Again, do not plug your car back in. Do not put the ground post back on until your seats are plugged back in. Super vital. Don't make a mistake here at the last stage. So both the seats are plugged back in and locked down securely. They're just sitting and resting on the inside. All the carpet's down, all the door sills are down. The back seat is in. You've got those bolts across the back and the bolts across the front. Don't forget to put those covers on. This is pretty heavy, so if you have a spare set of hands, that's nice to have. Again, check all your door seals, the rubber door seals on the outside, to make sure that they're all secured down really, really well. We take a look at the back. I've already put the back together. I've put the trays back in. That's really straightforward. That bowl carpet, I put the edge in on this end front so the carpet fits underneath the plastic and lay it back down. Put the toolkit back in place, put those plastic rivets back in, come back around on this side, same thing on this side, check your door sills. The back seat is now completely secured down with the covers back over the front bolts. And of course the driver's seat is still loose, just like the passenger seat, because I need to reconnect the battery, check your door sills all the way around, your door sill plastic, and then at that point you're really close to done. So go ahead and reconnect the ground post of your battery. Adjust your seats, get them secured down and snugged down appropriately. Torque values will be in the video description of what you need for your seat bolts. And then at that point, you're done. Good job, congratulations. This is not a hard job. It's just one that takes some time. All right, y'all, you're all done, so go ahead and clean up and put your tools away. This isn't a hard project. This is something that really is gonna just take some time and some patience to get through all of the steps to get this done correctly. Now, I really believe in Soundskins products. I've done this install on a whole bunch of different cars, and the difference really is dramatic. Everything from big SUVs to like my personal M2. You know, it just makes a dramatic difference in reducing road noise, but then also improving the sound floor, that sound conditions in your car for your stereo system, whether it's OEM or upgraded. It especially makes a big difference having all that layering underneath your subs. Now, if you came across the stage 3 video and you haven't seen the stage 1 and 2, make sure to check those out. It will make a big difference in all the noise coming through your doors, and that especially affects things like when you're stuck in traffic. Thank you to Soundskins for making such a fantastic product. It's so easy to work with. I love having it in my car. I really appreciate them a lot. Now please click like and subscribe. It makes an honest difference to my channel, and I would really appreciate it if you did so. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next project.